come over and got to go meet all the people. So I feel that's been a long time ago.
Yeah, he is now one of our web people.
Yeah, digital content or something like that, it says?
Yeah.
That's not in the screen, isn't it?
No,
Okay.
I'll make sure it's not, even if it is. I had no somewhere.
It's on the far side, there you go.
There we go.
This giant conference room, you can't keep track of all your stuff.
Right. Alrighty. So, let me get to my questions. Very basic, just reflecting at your time here.
I tried to think about this. What are you going to say when Bradley or Mary Shank or, let's say, the news people come in and say, well, how do you reflect? And I'm like, gosh. When I started this 27 and a half years ago, I simply wanted to catch bad guys. It was about trying and not fully understanding all that's involved in this, and so my philosophy clearly has evolved over the years, and you learn more about what this is all about, and it's a process. And so I guess the highlight I would say was going to be the time I was very fortunate here with timing, and I was able to spend 16 years in our investigations division. And so the men and women who work over there have the hardest jobs, and while their default schedule may be day shift, there's a lot of nights and weekends and interrupted little league games and those kinds of things that those folks do, working on the hardest cases that we have.
Yeah, and that kind of goes in, what is your biggest, to you anyways, what's your biggest achievement? What are you most proud of?
So I guess I will go back. The thing I am most proud of that time in investigations and working with families who are going through sort of catastrophic events, and however victimization has touched their lives. Sometimes it's through a death, and sometimes it's through other types of abuse, or sometimes it's things like bank robberies and some of those things that really affect people, and they carry that baggage for a long time. And so that work and doing that for a long time has been, as far as police work, the part that I'm most proud of. The last 3.5 years or so as chief has had its share of challenges, and we were able to get quite a few things accomplished. Urbana hadn't had body cameras initially, at least it wasn't an early adopter as with other maybe local agencies, and so budgeting and as things went along, trying to manage those things, and so I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that we were able to get school resource officers full-time, one in the middle school, one in the high school, and worked hand in hand with the school district. That had never happened in Urbana before. It had been much more of a patched together half-time operation. And so I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that we've been able to build relationships with the community and try to do some of the hard work and some of the conversations that are difficult over the last a couple of years. And then to do some of this work under the whole umbrella of a pandemic. That's made a lot of these things challenging, conversations and things, and even news interviews like this will sit far apart, and that those types of things have been made a challenge. And with the focus on mental health, I think that's a big change. And understanding that, Joel Sanders, a lieutenant who had retired from here about a year ago, was a big believer in that. And mental health, both, as I've said, inward-facing for the department and for officers to check on their well-being, and then outward-facing, how we deal with citizens and crisis intervention team officers who've been certified through schools, and how we have a follow-up crisis co-responder sort of team here now to try to help facilitate some of those things. So much of those issues get dumped in the lap of the police, and 99% of the time they go fine. But that small percentage, when things go wrong, those are the things that make the news. And hopefully some of these efforts can minimize those exposures.
Yeah.
Did I ramble enough for you there? Do you have enough tape in the machine?
Yes.
For,
You're fine. You're fine. Yeah, no, I went to this Danville Citizens Police Academy thing last night, and the Chief Yates talked about it, the same exact thing about mental health and how it's inward and outward, and I never really put that into perspective as much as, you think about it, military-wise and whatnot, but then also, it's the same thing for police.
Right, and it's funny you talked about Chris Yates, because that's who I was on the phone with that I couldn't get off when you showed up. Correct. I think, the idea of policing has shifted a lot. When I started in 1994, there were still, there's at least one or maybe two folks here who had been on in the 60s who started, and so you have this, there's been a lot of change, and hopefully it's for the better. I think, again, no chief wants to have to deal with some of these types of situations, and whether it's an officer-involved death or anything, and clearly, when it comes to mental health and the officers, and that, I hope that it's better now than it was.
Yeah, sorry. Throw that in there. So obviously, they already have a replacement for you. I'm sure you were part of in that decision and whatnot. Going forward, though, when you leave, what are you most excited to see continuing in the department?
I am. I'm trying to find the right way to say this. I think one of the things that, as far as I transition here over the next couple of months and the city begins a search process, I'm proud of the fact that we have a team of police executives, managers here that are willing and able and ready to step into some different roles and challenging roles. Some of that work is different than being a patrol officer or being on a street crimes unit or being a detective. And managing those relationships, understanding how the budget has to kind of work, and really reaching out across different segments of city staff is important. And I think we have that sort of built. And so that's one of the things I'm most proud of moving forward, and I want to see continue. I want to see this co-responder model continue. And if it changes as new laws and new resources become available, that's fine. I'm not so married to this is the only way we can do things. I think you can find a lot of different ways to sort of move some of those things forward. But I'm proud of the fact that our staffing level is reasonable here. We're down, but it's been a challenge throughout all of policing and throughout all of the United States. And when I go to meetings with police chiefs from other areas, and including in Illinois, and everyone is sort of struggling here. And so I think we're in a reasonable sort of a place right now, staffing-wise.
Yeah, I'd say we already kind of talked about that.
Yeah, we did the other day, that's right.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really pretty much it. The only other question I have, and I'm sure I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it just because, it's a question I have to ask. But is there any specific reason you're leaving? Is it just because you're just ready to go, or?
I think there's all sorts of challenges being a police chief, and there's all sorts of relationships that you have to manage. We've the last couple of years, and some of what we've had to weather, I think we're in a good place right now. I think I've been able to sort of personally get to a spot that we're comfortable in, and I don't have to do anything immediately. And so usually one of the questions that I was ready for, which is, what are you doing next? John Lester, the baseball pitcher, recently retired, and he said, I don't have anything necessarily planned. And so we'll be able to look for some other opportunities and explore and maybe be a little more selective in what the next step is.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's it. I appreciate you sitting down.
You are welcome. You've been fun. Like I said, hopefully next week at this time I'll be off the coast of Honduras going scuba diving.
Right.
And that's no BS. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's it. Enjoy that, man. Seriously. Alrighty. Well, again, I do have to get some cutaway shots.